One of our guests is with us, and I'm sure he's a familiar face to most of us. He is in the person of Captain Gilbert Kibe, who is the former Director General of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority and currently an aviation consultant based in Nairobi, Kenya. Shortly, Captain Kibe will have the opportunity to give us a bit more details about himself and what he's up to in recent times. But in the meantime, today's show, we are going to focus our discussions on safety. Safety, as we all know, is the #1 priority of the aviation industry. And as such, everything that we do borders around it. And we cannot talk enough about safety. On the African continent particularly, we have noticed that significant progress has been made in the area of safety. And this is due to various stakeholder collaboration and efforts by both the regional bodies, such as ICAO, IATA, AFRAA, AFCAC, as well as the regional economic communities and the individual civil aviation authorities. We are experiencing significant safety improvements, but we cannot take anything for granted. And in today's show, my guest will actually be taking us through discussions on how we can further improve safety from where we find ourselves, what needs to be done, how do we ensure it's all inclusive, where are we with the IOSA, ISSA, and ISAGO implementation, and how do we ensure that the few countries who are still lagging way behind the ICAO threshold of 60%, how do we get them to cross this threshold so that together no country is left behind on the continent? These and many more, ladies and gentlemen, will be what my guest will be speaking on. So whilst we get Barry Kashambo to join us, I would start with my first guest who is here, Captain Gilbert Kibe, who would take the opportunity to tell us a bit about himself, what he's been doing since leaving the Civil Aviation Authority of Kenya, and also tell us some bit more about what he is currently engaged in. Thank you very much. Enjoy the show. Remember, you have the opportunity to participate in this show. So if you have questions, please use the Q&A tab or the chat box. At the appropriate time, I will visit those functions and bring up your questions or comments to the attention of our guest. Thank you very much and enjoy the show. Yes, Captain, tell us a bit more about yourself and what you are up to in recent times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raphael, for the introduction. Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this SkyConnect Dialogue, where we shall be talking with Raphael and together with Barry Kashambo about matters concerning aviation safety. My background in brief, I'm a commercial pilot and I have been, I think there's a power. So if I go off, you please forgive me, it will come back just now.
Okay.
So outside of being a commercial pilot, I have been a businessman, own and operate a flying school, and I used to be the Director General of Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. Today, I'm an air transport consulting. I run a company known as Air Transport Consulting. And as the name implies, I consult in air transport in all aspects of air transport, where safety, security, operations, air navigation services, the entire scope of aviation, I have some experience in, and I assist customers to come up with plans and programs that will improve the operations that they have in air transport. I'm also a connector. I connect suppliers, goods, and services.
Oh, so thank you so much.
I'm enjoying myself. Yeah.
Great. Captain, but I also understand you are a board member of the Aviation Safety Alliance for Africa. Can you tell us briefly about this organization? It seems it's a recent organization, and it seems to be actually generating some waves.
Yes. So the Aviation Safety Alliance for Africa is an organized group of aviation professionals who have gotten together to offer value-added services to the aviation industry in Africa. Our focus is Africa. So we provide advisory services to governments through the Civil Aviation Authorities and also to air navigation service providers, etc. So the spectrum of government in aviation, but we also offer advice and guidance to air operators in the aviation industry. This is a voluntary group. You can call it, it's like a CSR project. We are giving back to the society. We have worked in the aviation sector as employed people, but now that we are out of formal employment in that way, we wish to spread our skills and experience to assist the other aviation players that we know of around Africa for the growth and development of aviation in this continent. The other role that I play, which I didn't mention, the Africa Civil Aviation Commission, AFCAC, the aviation body for aviation under the African Union, under the African Union Agenda 2063, there are 16 focus areas, and 3 of those focus areas start with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the Free Movement of Persons Protocol, and the Single Africa Air Transport Market. AFCAC is the executing agency for the Single Africa Air Transport Market, or SATAM, and AFCAC has appointed me to be a SATAM ambassador for the Eastern region, the 14 or so states around Eastern Africa, for me to encourage the governments to implement SATAM, governments and airlines and the aviation industry. So that's another role that I play, which I'm really enjoying.
Thank you, Captain. I mean, so you are retired, but definitely not tired from what you are engaged in, a consultant and still running to support the industry in various ways. Now, if I may just go to Africa, way back, decided probably the way to go to improve safety on the continent is to set up regional safety oversight organizations. So, and we have a couple of them on the continent. What would you say has been their impact on the safety improvements that we are seeing on the continent at the sub-regional level?
Now, the regional safety oversight organizations are a very, very important pillar in the promotion of safety of aviation in Africa. We have several of them in the EAC or in the East African community. We have CASOA, the Civil Aviation Safety and Security Oversight Agency. This agency is an oversight agency over the Civil Aviation Authorities, or CAA, in the EAC. And now we have 8 countries in the EAC. And so the member and the leadership of CASOA is a board of directors, which is the director generals of the civil aviation authorities of each of the partner states. And there's one aviation technical expert that is also appointed on the board of CASOA. And it is run by a chief executive known as an executive director. And that organization has its core competent staff of regulatory people, safety, security, and all aspects. So the primary role of RSOO is to oversight CAA. So for instance, CASOA can send a team to Tanzania to conduct an audit of the safety oversight system of that particular state. And the results are given to the board of CASOA, but also we send copies to the Global International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, so that they are able to monitor and evaluate the effective implementation of safety oversight in each particular state. So we have, they have audits, periodic audits around each of the countries, and these reports are given. And that is a primary way that we can determine the level of effective implementation of ICAO's standards and recommended practices known as SARPs.
But Captain, in some of the regions, not all countries have aligned their regulations and policies of regarding safety and operations. So how are these bodies able to deal with countries within their network who have their independent regulatory structures?
Yeah, that's a good question, because not everybody is a member of such organizations. But those countries that are not members of regional safety oversight organizations are still also accountable to the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO. So in one way or another, ICAO is able to determine the level of effective implementation, regardless of whether they belong to an RSOO or not. But we advise states to join RSOOs because there's a given value add to them. So a very, very key value add, I can give an example of the EAC, is harmonization of state regulations. So each state has got its own regulations for aviation. But under the RSOO, we are able to harmonize all the regulations in those partner states so that they are identical. I'm happy to report that at the EAC, more than 90% of all our regulations, safety, security, economic regulation, oversight, they are all harmonized and are the same. So it doesn't matter which state you go to, you will be implementing the exact same regulations. That is a huge advantage. So a country that's on its own doesn't have the advantage that we have as an RSOO.
But in some cases, now we've harmonized regulations in the case of the EAC.
Yes.
But unfortunately, movement of skilled resources is still a problem.
Yes.
Why is that?
It has been extremely difficult to attract and retain professional, qualified, and competent personnel. These personnel who would ordinarily work under these civil aviation authorities or the RSOOs are working in industry. Now, the industry remuneration or pay is higher than you would get in a government CA or in an RSOO. So it's a challenge to attract and retain these personnel. So efforts are being made to improve the remunerations for such safety critical personnel that in some instances, governments have even agreed to unilaterally increase the remuneration for such specialized people away from the standard cadre to be able to attract and retain them. In Kenya, we were able to do that during the time that I was there and even before, but not everybody has been able to do it. So our human capacity has always been a constraint, and it is likely to continue being a restraint because capacity building is not sufficient enough to attract and retain these professionals.
Yeah, but Captain, but if you look at it also, apart from the fact that it's difficult to attract and retain enough competent and skilled people in the RSOs, if you look at the industry itself, in terms of operations, in terms of Civil Aviation Authority, in terms of airlines that are in operations, now one would expect that once the regulations of the partner states are harmonized, then skills should be freely movable. So, for instance, a captain in Uganda can come and operate in Kenya, can go and operate in Tanzania. Any of those professional skills can easily move across, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Why is that?
Yeah, it's a challenge. Even though our regulations are harmonized, the free movement of persons has not yet become a reality. So what does that mean? Free movement of persons is, number one, being able to travel anywhere you want to travel in Africa without requiring a visa. In some parts of the EAC, you don't require even a passport. You just use your national ID and you can travel. There are three states in East African Community, Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda, that allow movement of persons using an ID card instead of a passport. But it doesn't end there. Free movement of persons means that an individual from country A may move to country B, settle there, work there freely without having to require a work permit, and derive a livelihood from a state that is not his own state. That has not yet been implemented, at least in a meaningful way. You do have expatriates who can come and work in your state, but it's not a widespread practice because the African Union protocol, known as the free movement of persons, has not yet been implemented in Africa. So once we do that, then you'll be able to attract and retain people from anywhere in Africa. So you don't have many restrictions in that regard.
Oh, thank you, Captain. Now, if we step back a little bit and go to the Abuja safety targets, I think at some point the safety levels in Africa were getting so low and so frighteningly low that there was a need to do something about it. And so experts converged in Abuja and came up with what were called the Abuja safety targets. How are we doing with the implementation of these targets?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The Abuja safety targets were developed to get African states to get together and improve safety performance in each state. And we have a mechanism where you can use experts from any of these states to come and assist a particular state that requires that kind of assistance to improve on safety. However, there have been some major challenges, and Barry is the one who would be much more familiar with that. But we have this an ICAO program. There are two ICAO programs that dwell on safety of aviation in Africa. There's APIRG, which is the AFI Planning and Implementation Regional Group. It's an ICAO program. And another ICAO program is the Regional Aviation Safety Group for Africa and Indian Ocean Region, RASG-AFI. I happen to have been the chair of RASG-AFI for about 4 years in my time as the DG. And we always had the same common challenges of implementation. One of them is capacity. These experts, and you've mentioned, and we've spoken about it just a few minutes ago, to attract these experts to come and work for a state or states is a major, major challenge. The other one is financial resources, which are required to be able to invest in aviation safety enhancement tools and equipment and programs. So we unfortunately suffer from that kind of a challenge. But Barry, when he joins, will be able to highlight more on that, because I think he has the most recent experience. Yeah, but before I left, the RASG group, Regional Aviation Safety Group, and APIRG group resolved that they'll be working much closer together to try and merge some of the programs that are common and have a better, more effective mandate of how they can operate to improve on safety in Africa.
So if we move to the safety as a responsibility for everyone, for instance, we start with the regional safety oversight organizations, and one would expect that logically at some point, these regional organizations will begin to merge. Then we can have a continental oversight organization of a sort.
Absolutely.
Or we can have harmonized continental safety regulations across the entire continent. Now, is that what we are likely to see going forward?
Yes, absolutely. Today, RSOOs have joint meetings around Africa. You'll find that there's one or two RSOO meeting in some state or the other, at least twice a year, where the RSOOs get together. There's the CASOA, the East African one, there's ISASO, the South African one, BAGASO in Western Africa. So they do have joint meetings, and they always discuss on how they can have joint programs together. So it begins by harmonizing regulations. That is the first step. If Africa's aviation safety and security and economic regulations were merged and became one and were harmonized and became one, then you have common regulations wherever you go around Africa. So that is step number one. Step number two is to look at the possibility of merger or acquisition of such organizations. And then we can create a big RSOO for Africa. A good example, but that in the air navigation space, is ASECNA. ASECNA has 17 states, and they have common air navigation regulations, common air traffic management modus operandi. I think we should follow the ASECNA model, but for aviation safety. So I would certainly support the merging of all our RSOs coming under in one body under AFCAC, Africa Civil Aviation Commission, which is the executing agency for aviation safety and security in Africa anyway. So that is a program that I highly support and would like to see.
But if we look at it against the backdrop that safety levels across the continent are at different levels, some are making very significant progress. I think the recent ICAO audit of South Africa rates them very highly on the continent, probably as the highest ranking in terms of their safety rankings. Now, there are a couple of them who are in the upper 80s or 80s. Others are in the 70s, but we still have some that are actually below 60. Now, if we are going to merge all of these things, don't you think we're going to actually have problems with these ones who are trailing behind? How do we get them to the level that we can support them together?
I don't think we'll have a problem. Yes, we'll have a challenge when somebody is operating below the global average of 62% in effective implementation, and there are several states who are like that, merging with ones who are achieving effective implementation higher than the global average of 62%. When they merge together under the No Country Left Behind program, automatically the stronger partner will hold the hand of the weaker partner and uplift them to a point where they can get above 62%. And they would have to be willing to do that and provide resources, both human capital and others, to bring them up because they're partners. So they have a common interest. So even the weaker partner will be motivated to improve on their effective implementation because of the partnership that they will have with their stronger partners. So I don't see that as a problem. I see it as a good challenge, and it can be resolved.
You know, I look at it differently. I always think because these ones who are weaker in terms of their safety oversight,
Yes.
in some cases they say they don't have the resources, yes, and their markets don't attract enough traffic to generate the resources that are needed to be invested in this area. So in partnering with other states which have made progress, unless these other states are willing to actually subsidize and pull them along in a brotherly African manner, I would think it might be difficult. They might just come in and be wobbling, and we still hang on our state sovereignty and will not let go.
You know, if one is determined to improve their safety performance and they don't have the resources to do it, you can ask your brothers and sisters who are in partnership with you for assistance, be it financial, human capital, or otherwise.
Okay.
If they are unable to do so, I am aware of states in the world who would be prepared to even fund activities such as equipment purchases, any major infrastructure requirement to improve on safety. I know states are there who are ready to donate funds. And so therefore, that is what they should go and do. Look for these states that can even donate funds to support you. I know of one that has helped us as well. They give us equipment for our mandatory and voluntary reporting system. They give us training. They send their experts to come to Kenya and train our people. That's an example of how we got something for free, so to speak. We didn't pay for it. So Raphael, these guys need to look for where such kind of donors who exist can be able to help them. So I don't think it should be something that will stop any state from being able to improve on their safety performance.
Ladies and gentlemen, we had lined up on the guests Mr. Barry Kashambo, the immediate former Regional Director, ICAO Eastern and Southern African Office, who was joining Captain Kibe in this discussion. So, Mr. Kashambo, you could give us a bit about yourself as you join us for this conversation.
A quick one, yeah. As you have just mentioned it, Marie. As you said, I was the former Regional Director for Eastern and Southern African Regional Office for ICAO in Nairobi, and now I'm a consultant, and right now I'm in Kampala. I'm sorry I couldn't join you earlier on because of connection problem. But this is a subject of my passion, and I hope I'll be able to say something and contribute to what Gilbert has already said in the last 40 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barry. So with Gilbert, we discussed about the Abuja safety targets, the progress we are making so far, and the RSOOs.
Okay, so I just finished with Captain, and then I come to Barry in a moment on the next issue that I want to draw on. So, Captain, you were saying that effectively we need to pull each other along in the spirit of no country left behind. Correct. Now, the other challenge we do have on the continent has to do with our different levels of certification and acceptance of each other's certification and qualifications. How do we bridge that gap too?
It's very simple and very difficult to achieve, and that is harmonization of regulations. I gave the example earlier about RSOOs. The East African community, the 8 partner states, have harmonized all their regulations. So there's no distinction between states. And we don't see why that cannot happen in all of Africa. After all, where are these regulations coming from? They come from ICAO itself. So if we harmonize and domesticate the ICAO regulations, and by domestication means putting it into each state's local laws, then I don't see where the problem is. If we have the same regulations wherever we go, then I don't see any challenge in that whatsoever.
Okay, now just hold that thought there. I'll come back and we explore further about ensuring that everybody takes responsibility on this. But let me bring in my other guest, Mr. Barry Kashambo, who is the past Regional Director for ICAO East and Southern Africa region. And Barry, you're most welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raphael, my brother. And sorry for the mishap. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this technology we still have to master it. Huh? It's a problem. Yeah. We combine it with power outages and problems, so it's acceptable. Now, we took the lead in your absence. So then let me go straight to my question. The question I had for you was actually on the Abuja safety targets. You know, since the Abuja targets were set, we started seeing improvements year on year in safety on the African continent. So what progress have we made to date so far on the Abuja targets?
Very good. Thank you. A quick one then. When the Abuja safety targets were done, 2012, there were 8 actually. There were 8 safety targets. Unfortunately, none of the 8 have been achieved, by the way, since 2012. And those safety targets, the 8 of them at that time, they have since been revised to 16. We added another 8 to make them the safety and air navigation service targets. So they were basically anchored on, they were based on the global goals and targets. At that time, the global goal was 60% global for safety. And so even by the time it changed 2 years ago to 75, only 57% of the African states had gone to 60%. As we talk now, 44% of the states in the world have gone to 75, 44% globally. And in Africa, I think we have got about 20%, if I'm not wrong. About 20% of the states are now above 75%. So we still have like 80% of the states are below the global target. And we still don't have all the states in Africa being in line with the 60% that was set by the safety target, by the Abuja safety targets. Anyway, in a nutshell, if you look at the 16 targets that we have, I think the best performing is critical element the target number 20, on 88% is the best. It has been implemented about 80, and we have one which has just done 15%. The one on aeronautical information service transition to aeronautical information management is only 15%. And this is a mandatory target that has been set by ICAO. So I would say that yes, some work has been done, but some of them, a lot of them have not. All of them have not been achieved in Africa. We have to have it done, and some of them are doable. I'll give you an example. 2 of them could be achieved very easily. One, we are supposed to have autonomous CAs in all African states. We still have about 4 states. That's something that is a low-hanging fruit. And the other one could be something to do with IOSA, the airlines. I mean, all airlines that are supposed to do IOSA program should be able to do it, and then we would close those 2. So we still have challenges in meeting the Abuja safety targets. But finally, the most important thing is that we must revise them now to meet the new global targets. because the global targets have changed, and our targets are still based on the archaic 60%. And now we have already moved 70% global target. So they need to be revised. We need to go back on the drawing board and how far, what have we done, what have been the challenges, and then align ourselves in line with everybody in the world. Back to you.
So, but if so far since 2012, only about 20% have actually made quite some big progress. Now, how are we going to deal with the rest in the spirit of a no country left behind?
I would say there are two things we can do. It's actually not 20% that it's 20% in the new who have achieved the new 75% target. Oh, if you could look at on average, we have done like we're currently on others, maybe we're talking about 52%, 53% thereabout. I think that we, first of all, in Africa, the governments must realize that aviation is a priority sector, especially for the landlocked countries. If you don't have, if aviation is not there, how else are you going to travel to your landlocked countries? Aviation is the biggest stimuli to tourism, the biggest stimuli to trade. So, priority of states to give to aviation as a program of the country is important. And some of the aspects that have delayed us are to do with that priority. Number two, we must help each other. In a no country left behind us, we tend to keep on waiting for Western countries and donors to give us aid to help each other. But we can also do it ourselves without having to go there. I think Gilbert must have talked about one of the organization, ISSA, which is coming up. We're saying, look, we are Africans, we have the information, we have the knowledge, we can help as experts, whether you are retired or not, but you're not tired, whether you are already working, we can put our synergies together and help both as individuals and as organizations. And the states should start helping each other. And that's even the reason why we are having regional safety organizations. Regional safety organizations are saying countries pull together your resources. Some of the countries are weak, some are strong. The strong ones will help the weak ones will come up. And once they are up, they'll also help their neighbors. So the thing, we must own our problems as Africa. And we must put it, we have to be focused. We must give it a priority. The problem is ours. We must face it head on and give it the resources and infrastructure it deserves.
You know, it's said in certain circles that, you know, safety is a culture, but that it doesn't seem like in the African culture, we have safety as ingrained in it as it is in other cultures. Hence, our not taking our safety responsibility seriously. Now, how can we ensure that the safety culture is adapted and sustained?
Thank you very much. First of all, ICAO as an organization put in place some of the pillars that you can be used and templates that you can use to enhance safety culture. But before then, everything important in life, even important in activity, must have a good culture that supports it. We have security culture. Even in your own home, you must have some good culture. You must have table manners. You must have, there are things basics that you must have. And the same goes with safety. Safety, you must have a culture to nurture it to become effective. There are many things that we have to do. One, we must understand that for us to be able to achieve certain gains in safety, there are some priorities and prerogatives that we must put in place. And those must be respected. We must know that safety is not in the hands of a few. Aviation safety is in the hands of all of us. It doesn't matter whether you are a cleaner. It doesn't matter whether you are the CEO. It doesn't matter whether you're the pilot or the engineer. It's a responsibility for all of us. And we must make sure that we go and preach this gospel of safety to everybody. The traveling public, passengers have got something to do about safety. And really, guys, on the flight, if you come and start pulling chairs on the flight, breaking things, if you go to the toilet and mess it up and it's locked, it becomes a no-go aspect. The aircraft can't take off. that's a responsibility of the passengers. So we all must own this aspect as key players, all the stakeholders, whether you are actively in aviation or you are outside aviation, but you are an active player within this industry, then you are part of us to make sure that safety culture is put in place. So it's a game for all of us, but we must also give it the priority it deserves.
Yeah.
Now,
Rafael, can I add something?
Yes, please do.
Yeah, let me support Barry further by saying that safety culture is derived from another concept known as just culture. Just culture is a non-punitive reporting, investigative analysis, and a feedback system. So when you find that there's safety culture is not there, people are afraid to report incidences. Whistleblowing becomes a problem. But under a just culture regime, you will allow or create a non-punitive reporting system for voluntary safety reports, mandatory safety occurrence reports. So just culture goes with safety culture. So if your just culture is right, your safety culture will improve and the benefits of what Barry has explained will be derived.
Oh, great. Now, let me say, one of our guests, Shamshu, says, Raphael, I beg to differ. Safety is part of African culture. It is inherent in any human activity. The difference might be the knowledge of risk. So how do we deal with the deficiency in the knowledge of risk in the African aviation space?
Okay. Actually, now I don't see where Chamsu is differing. He's not differing. He's actually supporting.
No, he says he is different from me. He was different from me because I said it appears that it's not in our culture.
Yes. Okay, I agree with him. And Chamsu is a good man. He must differ with you because you are not telling the truth.
Yeah.
So I agree with the Chamsu. And of course, Gilbert, thanks very much for that contribution. The issue of culture, in fact, if you look at everything that is in the African culture, we should be having one of the best safety records because our culture is so strong when it comes to the norms and habits and practices of the safety culture that we talk about in aviation. And so I totally agree with Chamsu that what is actually lacking is awareness and sensitization of the public, of the stakeholders to know that what we are looking for and to consolidate it and make sure that we nurture that to become part and parcel, not only in our culture as Africans, but also within the industry as players for in the operational safety of aircraft.
Okay, let me take a few other comments and questions. Victoria Moore says, please, can we hear a bit more about the Aviation Safety Alliance for Africa? When was this set up? And are there any specific projects in the pipeline at the moment? I don't know which of you want to take this.
Yes. Sorry, yes. By the way, for the lady who has asked that question,
yes.
I have seen the link on LinkedIn for Aviation Safety Alliance sent by one of our members, Tom Cook. So please look at the chat. You'll find the link to Aviation Safety Alliance for Africa. So we do have programs in ISSA. We are given a seat at the table of every major aviation event in Africa. We were in Ethiopia last month for the AFRAA Stakeholder Convention. We attend IATA events. We attend AFCAC events. So all the major events around Africa, as ASA is represented by one or two or more of us. And we do have programs. And some of the programs we have two programs coming up in August. And we want to have safety talks in those programs. One will be in English and another one will be in French. So if you could keep up with what we're doing on LinkedIn and other platforms, members will be able to know what we're doing and be able to attend. But you will always find us in every major event around Africa. The next major event that we shall be attending is this month in Windhoek, Namibia, where the AviaDev conference will be happening. We shall be there, we shall be represented, and we shall be given an opportunity to speak as well. So what we want to do is utilize the experience and expertise we have to help other states, institutions, organizations, and individual people to improve on all aspects of aviation, safety, security, economic progress, and implementation. Every aspect. We have enough of us with a wide range of experience that we can assist people, individuals, and institutions and partner states. We're willing to help, and we do this for free. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
I wanted to add something, Raphael, there.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, and I'm a member of ASA. But I think one of the other things that we need to move a step further with this. When you look at a lot of support programs and other organizations that we are having within the continent, we are tending to, we are still looking at safety as the pillar, mainly safety as a pillar. But we need to go wider than that. We need to start looking at other things, cybersecurity. We need to look at facilitation. And I think in the conversation, we are going to either stay within ASA and give it the wider perspective, or even come up with something wider and bigger so that we can be able to encompass the entire air transport sector. Conversations are already going on behind the scenes to see how this can be done to complement what AFRAA and ICAO is doing. But I think we have enough capacity, enough human capital within the technical field of aviation to start making sure that we cover the entire spectrum of air transport wider than safety. I just wanted to emphasize on and add on what Gilbert has mentioned.
Thank you, Barry, for that. Now, Victoria also wants to know from Barry your thoughts on harmonizing of the RSOs that we have on the continent. Is this possible? Do you believe this is possible? We can unify these ones across the continent and have unified safety standards for Africa?
Yes, why not? I agree, Victoria. I hope Victoria is aware that I was the executive director of one of the RSOs on this continent called CASOA, the RSOs for East African states, partner states. And I can see that conversation is already ongoing. When I was at ICAO at the Nairobi office, we convened together with my colleague in the WACAF office in Dakar. We convened a meeting to discuss how we can establish strong and robust RSOs in Africa. It was held in Eswatini in Southern Africa. And one of the things that came out as a solution was that we must have these harmonized. So already it's working. Harmonized regulations are very important. They are the best that have happened. If you look at the results of the audits, the areas where there are harmonized regulations and laws, that's where the states are scoring the highest. And that can be seen in Bagasso in the west, and it can be seen in Kassoa region in the east. So we have to do that. The best way we can Africa can move, let's harmonize so that we can harness the resource, the synergies. It's already doable. We can see the testimony that it is doable is there. It has happened in Bagasso. It has happened in Kassoa. It's happening in some other regional safety organizations within the Central African region. Yes, the ultimate should be, can we make sure that we have the same platform, harmonized system, harmonized licenses, systems, harmonized examination systems, harmonized aviation medicine, and it's doable because the platform and the foundation is already in place. It's happening already. So Victoria, yes, it can happen. What we need is to be committed. What we need is to be focused. And I think the future is brilliant and bright if we can get the political support, if we can get the concurrence of everybody that is in play. Yeah, thank you, Raphael.
Oh, thank you so much. There's another question here from Tatevik. Tatevik says, do African airlines have access to data on overflight risk? Or do they have to rely on local governments to provide them with such data? If yes, do these governments actually have overflight risk data that is being shared with the airlines? I don't know which of you want to take this.
I would like to know what does he mean by overflight risk? I haven't understood what he means by overflight risk.
Okay, so if the question is not clear, I would ask Tatevik if you could come again and clarify your question. Then we can provide some thoughts on that.
But Raphael, in the interest of time, even before he clarifies, as he's clarifying, we can generalize and say data is a problem in Africa in aspects beyond even air traffic. So one of the things that we're having as a problem is data, availability of data, and sharing of the data the little that we have, and then putting in place systems where we can be able to capture data, share it, analyze it, and use it effectively. So even with the foundation, the simple question that he has made, data sharing, data acquisition, data analysis is a problem in Africa. And this has to be addressed across the board. So maybe he has already clarified, but I wanted to bring it up that data acquisition, data provision by the states and stakeholders, data analysis, and then following up on the findings from the analysis, all those are still a challenge that we're facing in Africa. And it's something that is a priority action that we need to do there. Yeah, go ahead, thank you, sorry.
That's right, yeah. Now, there's another question from Caroline who says she would like to know from the panelists your thoughts about preparing the next generation of aviation professionals. We earlier talked about brain drain and the difficulty with which it is to attract and retain professionals in the industry. So she's asking, what are we doing about the future of professionals?
Yeah, I would like to answer that question. The ICAO next generation of aviation professionals is very, very high on the agenda for ICAO, and it is a very, very high requirement globally, because globally we have a shortage of highly trained, qualified, and competent aviation personnel, including pilots, engineers, air traffic controllers, you name it, the works. So states tried to come up with programs that could assist in sponsorship of students, because the primary primary restraint is the cost of training. Aviation training is deeply expensive. So people in Africa try and come up with plans and programs that can create sponsorship for the youth so that they can be trained in these areas. The Africa Approved Training Organization of Africa, ATO, has such a program. The training institutions around Africa are members of ATO. It's an Africa organization for approved training organizations. But the primary challenge is financial resources. Now, what successful airlines have done, like Ethiopia, for instance, they have their own aviation university now. It used to be an aviation academy. They train their own pilots, engineers, cabin crew, the works. So then they offer training services to organizations around Africa, but they too are also expensive. But what Ethiopian does, they sponsor those students themselves, then they join the airline and if there's any loans or whatever that were used to get that training, they are able to deduct the salary until they pay such things. So we try and encourage airlines around Africa to do the same. We would like African airlines to create their own approved training organizations, seek funding, whether it is governmental or some other way of sourcing funds, to do that and to do it in a hurry. Because you'll find that of the aviation professionals globally, many of them are aging. Very, very few are young and starting to get experience. There's a huge gap between inexperienced and very experienced people. And it's very worrisome because when those experienced people retire or leave the scene, what will happen? So it's a critical problem. So the ICAO No General Next Generation of Aviation Professionals program is extremely key. So we would ask states who are willing to assist in these efforts to come and fund such approved training organizations. That is the kind of approach I think we need to take in a very big way around Africa.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we've overrun our time actually, but I still have two very important questions I would want my guests to respond to. Then I will take their closing thoughts, and then we can bring the session to an end. So please bear with me. Sorry for us running late on this program today. The question is, William wants to know whether there are any initiatives taken to harmonize UAS operations, safety and risk-wise, because UAS is the next frontier of aviation in Africa.
Yeah.
Can I try that? Can I try that?
Yeah, Barry, go ahead.
Now, William, I wanted to tell William what the 6 top projects that are being spearheaded by the key industry partner players. That's IATA, ICAO, and ACI. They are: 1, environment protection, what the program called AirTag, long-term aspiration goals. Number 2, cyber security and ICT resilience. That includes artificial intelligence. Number 3, crisis response and management, and that is also increased risk management, which is a very important aspect. Number 4, advanced air mobility, and that covers unmanned aircraft systems that William is talking about. That's one of the 6. Number 5, the audit evolution, making sure that we know the evolution and the application of the outcomes. And number 6, implementation support, and that is capacity building, infrastructure development, and so forth. So those 6 aspects are what we are looking at, what the key players are looking at as the future for the next up to 2050. So William's question about unmanned aircraft system is already catered for within what now it is transitioning from unmanned aircraft systems to advanced air mobility, because that's where we're going. We're going to make sure we want to see bigger things, which are even beyond the unmanned aircraft systems. So it's going to be covered. William, don't cover that. It's a priority that is being looked at, and all the provisions are being put in place, including regulations, harmonization, and so on and so forth. Over to you, Gilbert.
Let me add one of the very, very strong partners from ICAO, IATA, etc. in what Barry has described is CANSO, the Civil Air Navigation Service Organization, which is the global body for air traffic management. Drones and this advanced air mobility operate in the airspaces of these air navigation service providers. So they are at the forefront, together with ICAO, IATA, etc., in came up with a program known as Shaping the Future Sky. Shaping the Future Skies includes all these new entrants that have come about, in particular drones. So these organizations are working together to do precisely what Barry has said in those 6 areas. I just wanted to add that.
Okay, thank you so much, both of you, for this. Now, the last question is there a robust risk management plan in place to address safety in Africa? Is there a robust risk management plan in place specifically for Africa to manage risk in the aviation sector? This question is by Francine.
Oh my God, I wouldn't be Francine. I know Francine very well. She's my good friend. Francine is a risk management guru from there. She's from Jamaica. And thanks very much for that, for Francine, for that question. The answer is no. And the issue is that we need it as we need it as yesterday. We must have the robust risk management system and plan in place if we are going to be players on the global arena. And it is something that is critical, something that is very important. And I think the conversation that has been going on around the remedies, there are some remedies, about 7 remedies. I don't have time to go through that. But one of the remedies that have been put in place to make sure that the Abuja safety targets and the status of aviation safety and security is enhanced in Africa is risk management systems. So on the paper, it's already there. On the conversation, it's already there, but it's not yet in place. Answer is we need to have it in place, and the key players must make sure it's in place. I think, Gilbert, one of the things we need to have done, and ISSA and the other platforms that are being created, is to make sure that risk management is given the deserved attention. Thank you.
Absolutely. Agreed.
Thank you so much. I mean, there are still quite a number of questions and comments that you need to deal with. So what I will request my technical team is to pick up these ones and send them to you. And then you can please respond and get back to us. Then we can forward to the people who have actually asked the questions. And before I let you go, ladies and gentlemen, now I would want to take your final thoughts. Any key message that you have for African aviation stakeholders with regards to safety? I'll start with Captain Kibe first.
Yes, 2 things I'd like to close off with. One, which we didn't mention, but has a significant impact on risk management, is air accident investigation, the AIG part. We were supposed to discuss that, but we never got around to it. But I do want to mention it here. Africa is weak in, like Brian was saying, data collection. And part of data collection, you get data from investigation of accidents and incidents in Africa. So we're very, very poor in that area. We need to up our game. We need to attract human capital who are capable, qualified, and competent to conduct air accident investigations. So that is one of my closing areas. But another thing that has a big impact on aviation safety is SATAM. We haven't gotten to discuss the Single Africa Air Transport Market, the AU program under Agenda 2063. When SATAM is implemented, and I'm pretty certain it will be implemented, we are going to get such a, what's the right word? A huge increase in air traffic. Because when flying is made more affordable around Africa, more Africans will fly to all different parts of Africa. That will mean that there will be a requirement for more airplanes, more aircraft movement. I have seen predictions of more than 1,000 aircraft required for Africa alone in the next 20 years. That means that they have seen the manufacturers have seen a situation where SATAM is being implemented, and we will have a requirement for over 1,000 airplanes more additional in the next 20 years. What does that mean? Our airspace will have increased traffic. When you have increased traffic, you want to make sure that this traffic does not get anywhere close to each other. We don't like airborne relationships. So the air traffic management system is to keep aircraft apart. When you've got such high traffic, we don't want to see an increase in accidents. So safety, aviation safety in Africa must be improved. Safety culture must be practiced through the just culture movement that I'm talking of. So SATAM is something that we're passionate about. We are encouraging states to implement it because we want Africa to be one sky, bring down the cost of taxes, fees, and charges by over 90% so that we can make tickets affordable for Africans to fly. Then you will see real progress. And aviation is the single largest enabler of economic development in Africa today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Captain, for those closing remarks. I do appreciate. Yes, Mr. Barry Kashambo, your final thoughts.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I'm I was saying that being on the same panel with Gilbert, he keeps on looking at my notes, and he has already taken some of my 2 points, but he's forgiven.
And we are 1,000 kilometers apart.
We are like-minded as usual.
Yes.
So now, one of the things I'd like to, as I give my two final points, I think one of these days we need to have a session and see where was Africa before? What was the history of aviation? And we have people like Chamsu who are gurus in this. Because when you start talking now, it's as if Africa has always been in the dark area in aviation. No, Africa was the pioneer of aviation globally. Most of these flights there in the 1950s, it was the epitome of aviation. And we need to just go back and say, let's go back to where we were. We were the envy of the world in aviation-wise. And we need to get back there. It hasn't been bad all the time, no. Things were good. And unfortunately, that was during the colonial time and the days immediately after. But we can get back. So my final 2 points here is that I would like my call would be, and this is from our panel, I suppose Gilbert agrees with me, that safety is the responsibility of all of us. And this should be a message that all of us should know, as you talked about safety culture and all the other aspects. Safety is a responsibility of all of us, and together we can attain it. Divided, it will go out of our hands. My second message is that aviation needs to be given a center place, a centerpiece, and a key player in our national development. When you look at the national budget, the budget that if you look at the national master plans, aviation is a subsection. It's not even a chapter. It's somewhere mentioned, somewhere relegated in the appendices. We need to have it as a chapter, in the preamble, that it is an industry that deserves to be given attention, that it is providing, it is a catalyst to the national economy, and catalyst to social development. It needs to be given the funding it deserves because it is a key sector and a key industry. So I think if once that is done, then we will have the funding, the infrastructure, and many other things, even the morale, the motivation. All these things fall in place once you are given attention, we'll give it priority. So I think we need to really make sure that we advocate for aviation to be given the seat it deserves at the high table. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Captain Gilbert Kibe and Mr. Barry Kashambo, for ably doing justice to the subject of safety in African aviation. We really appreciate. To my guests, I thank you all for joining in the show today. And thank you especially to those who have asked questions. Sorry, we could not take all the questions, but we promise we will respond to the rest of them and get back to you in the call before this week ends. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where we bring the curtains down. And we thank you very much for your patience and for enduring us 22 minutes after the hour when we were supposed to stop. I really thank you, but I think you benefited from this stimulating discussion today on aviation safety. Thank you very much and have a nice day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.